Welcome to podcast 43. Yes, maybe, but yes.
Hello, welcome to podcast 43. It's your host, Chris, and joined by my lovely host, Fulton Collins, with two guests for our Halloween episode, returning to the show, Joseph Shin and Nathan Alligood, to talk more Rob Zombie, actually.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Was there a Rob Zombie episode? Was that also last October? Was that, or was it during the year?
I think it was
March. Yeah.
Yeah, that was this year. That was,
Yeah. I thought so too. I had to go back and look myself.
Yeah.
It feels like eons ago when we did sort of the Rob Zombie Odyssey.
It does.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember when we did the Godard one with you. That was only
The
like a
Godard
few
one
months
was,
ago, right?
I remember that a lot more clearly than the Zombie.
Yeah.
That was pretty recent.
yeah.
Third appearance now. I think I want to say I hold the record for podcast 43 guest appearances.
Actually, now I think you do. I was trying to think. I think Reagan's one of the top ones.
There have been a lot of twos,
one of the top
but never
ones.
three.
Yeah, this is true. I think you might.
I think
you
I'm
might
breaking
hold
the seal.
Yeah.
It's
We're
such an
recording
honor.
this. Yeah, we're recording this on Halloween. So to the listeners, I know we'll be late, but happy late Halloween. And sorry we forgot to mention it on the previous episode. I didn't even think about it.
Yeah. I mean, we did cover something scarier than any monster, which is racism. So,
Very true.
Did you solve it?
No, we didn't solve it, but Diane Kruger tried to.
Damn it, Chris.
Man,
I've been
I was
counting
trusting
on you.
podcast 43 is what I get.
Well, one of the things about that episode is that we declared that we're anti-Nazi, so we're kind of moving in that direction. So it was an
I was not
important
told
step.
this. This is that's a
Oh.
controversial take. I should have been notified.
I mean, baby steps.
Yeah, we're getting there. But without further ado, we've all been joined back together to talk about Rob Zombie's two Halloween films. And I feel like it would be fitting to start with the first one. And I'll just say I've had kind of a complete 180 from the first time that I watched it, which was when we last recorded it. And I wasn't as crazy about it. But man, both of them are extremely wild. But what are your guys' first impressions on like the first Rob Zombie Halloween?
So I think that's sort of it wasn't very critically well received. It did make good money at the box office, but it sort of had that same phenomenon as sort of the Star Wars, the original set of sequels or prequels that they did, and that people didn't want like sort of the central character Michael Myers to be explained away, which is sort of the function of especially the first Halloween Rob Zombie film. And it also signals such a different aesthetic and narrative strategy than we're used to from the Halloween film. So I think a lot of sort of the Carpenter heads and the horror heads, it felt like some sacrilege was being done on their beloved franchise. And in some ways it is. And that's why it's definitely an interesting film to talk about and sort of its divergences from the original film and the franchise as a whole.
Yeah. I like to imagine like a lifelong Halloween fan just pulling up back in 2007, Memorial Day weekend, saying like, oh, I'm going to see a new Michael Myers, new film. And they're just greeted by like the first 10 minutes of the most abhorrent, just family abuse. Just everyone at that breakfast table.
Well,
and
it's funny that you mentioned that because I was watching a ranking of this guy's. He was ranking all the Halloween films, and this one was at the bottom one. And he's like, that day back in 2007 was the worst viewing experience I've ever had. It's just white trash people, and Michael's there for some reason and everything. I just thought it was very funny. His reaction to it.
But it's like, what else? Like, how else would you, if they were to go about a sequel or a remake of an original slasher film like this, I would rather have Zombie explore his character in a more original way than just kind of do a by the numbers remake. And so I have to really champion it because of that, where the first third of the movie is just talking about his family life and making the Myers family in the original 78 Halloween is thoroughly middle class, like, lives in the suburbs, pretty straight laced family. But in this one, his mom is a stripper trying to make ends meet. His stepdad is just horrible and just says all these obscene things. And his sister is also quite mean to him. And so I think it kind of brings along this new dynamic. And I mean, yes, it's probably better to have Michael Myers like actually be this kind of ambiguous presence or shape, as they say, that just is a pure evil killing machine. But if you're going to remake this, and if a remake was inevitable, I'd rather have it be explored this way than just a shot for shot explanation.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I can appreciate what it's doing for sure, and I have come to appreciate it, but it is still a very uncomfortable, like, first act. Just that whole family and the bullies, and just Michael. Michael is like shown as being like all the warning signs of like a serial killer. I think PETA famously likes the film for showing him torturing animals.
It's like the house that Jack built. It's very similar. Yeah. It's sort of laying out this sort of serial killer mentality.
Well, that rape scene is rough. It's so rough.
It's horrible.
That one's extremely.
Yeah. Did y'all watch the director's cut?
Yeah, we watched both director's cuts. Yeah.
I got the theatrical cuts. I didn't have to watch that.
Yeah, no, it's
tough. I think me and Nathan, we've watched the theatrical. So when you said rape, I was like, what?
Well, it's interesting because it almost kind of builds Michael as like, he's kind of helping her in that situation where he beats up or for people who might not know, there are two prison guards and they take advantage of the mentally unstable women at the insane asylum that Michael's at. And so for some reason they decide to take a woman into Michael's room to kind of taunt him with her, and they end up raping her in front of him. And then he, takes a hold of both of them and he kills them. And then he does another terrible thing, which is kill Danny Trejo, which is so sad because hearing Danny Trejo say, "Mikey, we were friends," and then he dips his head.
I was good
into
to you,
the
Mikey.
Thing. Yeah. So sad.
It's a deeply upsetting kill. I remember watching with Nathan, and Nathan was like, "If he kills Danny Trejo, I'm out." Like as soon as Danny Trejo, he was like, "If he kills this man, I'm out. I'm not finishing this."
It's a strike against
the movie. Upsetting because that's sort of the fulcrum point where you discover that Michael, like, he has no allegiance. He has no allegiance to anyone
other than his mom.
Pure evil. who he actually lunges at one point in the film. It looks like he's about to kill her. So he's this sort of empty shell that Loomis sort of talks about, especially in the original Halloween movies. This is pure evil, not a person.
Yeah,
that's become one of my favorite bits of the Halloween franchise is Dr. Loomis just like immediately like pulling out a gun to kill Michael and always telling everybody just to like kill him. And that again is played with a lot within these two films.
I think the best thing about these movies is Malcolm McDowell as Dr. Loomis. I think he does. I think he really makes the character his own in just a completely different way from like Donald Pleasance's portrayal in the original.
He brings
film.
an unhinged energy. And I'm glad that Malcolm McDowell's fortunes like put him at the same level where he would have to work on a Rob Zombie film, and like that sort of the stars align for him to be like this lead in the Halloween films, because he is quite good, and he actually is quite different in both of the films. In the first one,
I think he's better in the second one because
and in the second one he's like this diva character.
He can kind of explore this like not like Paragon Loomis that these films are trying to come across as.
When me and Nathan were working through the sort of the original franchise before this reboot, the films really did become more about Loomis to me, like how insane Loomis was versus because Michael practically never changes. He's this like alien sort of figure that just like comes in, this external force, and kill all these teenagers. Loomis becomes insane. Loomis is getting bystanders killed. He's just like doing things with no remorse or free thought.
And no one calls him out on this. Like,
everybody's
today,
like,
I like
the ends justify the means,
Like earlier today, I caught a part of Halloween 5 on cable, and it was like Loomis like talking to Jamie, and Jamie is a small child. I won't go into the full plot, but anyway, he's just like grilling her, just like getting all up in her face, like, "Where's Michael? You know where Michael is? Where is he?" Like, it's insanity.
Well, speaking of
Loomis gets
Jamie,
up to.
actually, it is, I thought an interesting thread that connects the original Halloween series, or at least 4 and 5, and these two Rob Zombie ones, is that the actress that plays Jamie, Danielle Harris, is in Halloween 1 and 2 as a character, as a, you know, a different character, as Laurie's
Annie.
friend. Annie, yeah, that's her name. I mean, you know, it's not like anything impactful or anything. I also don't really like the Laurie Strode in these movies, but maybe it's just because I have such a bias towards Jamie Lee Curtis.
It is interesting that, you know, in some ways, the first Rob Zombie Halloween has sort of a fidelity to the events of the original Halloween film. Like, there is sort of a care to like have at least some parallels.
No, they pull lines of dialogue directly from the original movie.
Right. And like, I think at like the halfway point, it basically becomes a pretty close retread of the same plot events of the first one. But the Laurie Strode character is unrecognizable from sort of the original film. It's this sort of, it's much more of a Rob Zombie character, a caricature sort of character.
Especially in the sequel.
Oh yeah, in the sequel, she's even more different. But
I have to say, one element that she is good at, she's a great screamer, which is a very important quality in sort of a Michael Myers victim. She sure can't scream. And that's
when they do when they do the retread though of the first Halloween, the one thing that I did like is that like the Myers house is like just like this rundown abandoned place, and like they're all like, and then there are her two friends that are like, yo, let's have sex in this like abandoned like house. Yeah,
there's like asbestos hanging out of the ceiling, like everything's got mold and dust on it. It's just a lot of turn-ons in there for them.
Yeah, as you do.
The ideal bedding spot in Haddonfield.
Yeah, just I think it was like there's just dust everywhere on the floor or something. Like it was not a great room.
There's all the walls are exposed.
Yeah. And it's too dark, you know.
The basement has a very interesting layout of like just like weird gates and wood and everything. Also,
right, yeah. If Laurie didn't die from Michael in that first one, she surely would have died from tetanus.
Yeah. With the first one, I also found Michael to be a little bit more playful. I found his like mannerisms to be very fun.
Playful.
No,
he's just playing with Danny Trejo. They're playing.
Me and Fulton were cracking jokes the whole time, but like, because Michael Myers would do like this like wide stance, and he'd just be standing there, and I feel like they kind of undercut a lot of the tension in this movie by like reusing a lot of the original score from the 78 film, but like at incorrect points, and it just doesn't really.
In the first one, they sure do recycle it a lot. The second one, they hold up.
Oh yeah, no, the second one they don't.
I don't remember them using it even more than like maybe a handful of times in the sequel. In the first one, yeah, it's pretty current.
Just like the Halloween theme, like while like people are like walking across the street or something, and it's just like a normal day in Haddonfield.
It's almost Godardian, the repetition.
It is Godardian. You are right.
Like Contempt with the little Legrand piece that repeats over and over again.
I would love a Rob Zombie remake of Contempt where Bridget Bardot is a redneck.
It's Sherry Moon Zombie as the Bridget Bardot character.
That's what the world needs right now.
That's up there with like Jerry Lewis playing Holden Caulfield and Catcher in the Rye. In his middle age, that would be a similar level of just like casting that would kill me.
Jerry Lewis having his Ben Platt moment.
I guess one of the other differences that I think we should probably talk about is the physical kind of the physical appearance of Michael as compared to the original. In this one, he's like I don't want to say roided out, but he is a very big presence.
The thing, yeah, I would say
Mhm.
you're hitting upon sort of the difference I think about the most between sort of this reboot and sort of the original iteration, and even the
Mhm.
David Gordon Green one, which is much more in line with sort of the original films, is that
Mhm.
Michael is, because we get his origin story, we think of him as a human being, much
Mhm.
more so than in the original franchise. But he's this human being that just, he's more than a human being. He feels too. His problem is he has too much emotion, which is not something we get from the original franchise. Like he's like devoid. He feels like he's like an abyss.
Yeah.
Sort of. In this one, he's feeling like a key difference is that he like makes noises in the Rob Zombie film. Like he grunts. Like
Yeah.
he's busting through walls with like animalistic force. Whereas the original Michael was a very clinical sort of figure, very sort of very measured, sort of his
Like
movements
he
were
would
very
just
precise.
appear or invade or something like that. Like he's not making new entrances to come and get you and kill you or whatever.
But this Michael is busting through walls. He's when he kills Octavia Spencer in the second one, that is the most.
When he kills Ma.
When he kills Ma, it is some of the most brutal.
All over.
He's yelling. Whereas original Michael never made a peep. He never made a peep.
No, not even as a child in the opening. Yeah.
And to believe it's all over a party invitation that Michael did that. I can't believe it. And I can't believe he killed Ma because of that. It's so rude.
Yeah, he didn't get invited to Ma's party.
He wasn't there for Lori.
Not being invited to Ma's party is probably the biggest FOMO you could ever get in life.
Yeah. It's the party of the century every time.
So I guess, are we kind of ready to transition into Halloween 2? Are there any kind of final thoughts that we want to put on Halloween 1?
I will say, the ending is a lot more.
Oh yeah.
The ending is a lot more bloody.
It's much more visceral in like how it's communicated.
A lot less
versus the original.
Because the original has the, Michael Myers falls out of the porch and then after getting shot by Dr. Loomis and is on the grass, and then they look and he's like gone, and then it's like, oh, where did he go?
And Laurie shoots him in the original as well.
Yeah, true.
And like he falls off and everything. But in this one, it's made fairly obvious what killed him completely.
And a lot of that is just, you can just attribute that to like the directorial style, like John Carpenter, like that original Halloween film, an incredibly elegant piece, just sort of the camera work, the smooth camera work, just like the way in which sort of narrative details are unfolded. Rob Zombie is not that kind of film. He's an impact cinema guy, the fast cutting, sort of very strident noise that comes through in every frame. And so that definitely comes through in this final sequence. Which actually I probably prefer sort of the final third of this Halloween reboot to sort of any of the other parts. I'm not a big fan of the origin story. I think origin stories are usually banal and cliche. That's certainly true of, I think, even this Halloween film. But I quite like the last third and the way that it sort of unfolds. And
well, I do want to say that needle drop to Love Hurts by Nazareth when he's just alone when he's just sitting alone, like young Michael Myers. Like, I think that may be like definitely one of the best parts of the series. Like,
do you remember the other big needle drop in the first Halloween Rob Zombie film?
We just watched it the other day.
There is a useless playing of Tom Sawyer. Rush's Tom Sawyer.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He is at the gas station.
At the gas station.
Grizzly.
There's just a 5
That's
second
a great scene
of Tom Sawyer for no reason except for to establish sort of period setting.
That's a great scene right there, where he fights Grizzly.
That's one of the scenes. I like watch that like once a week. There's one part in it where Ken Foree's taking a shit, and so like Michael Myers intrudes on his space. Ken Foree takes out a knife and it's like, I'm gonna fuck you up if you get in my space. And then so he opens the door, Michael opens up. And then so Michael takes Ken Foree's hand and just slams it against the bathroom stall and it's such a repetitive motion. And it happens literally for like 10 seconds. Like it's like absurd.
You see that door just bending, or the walls of the stall just bending.
I do like the Ken Foray appearance too, because it's nice to see somebody a very horror icon show up in a movie with a small cameo, as well as someone who is in Rob Zombie's The Devil's Reject.
A lot of Rob Zombie folk make appearances.
Zombie has
Bill Moseley has a nice bit part as one of the guards.
Yeah,
Sid Haig is the crypt keeper. One that's not like a sort of a zombie part of his sort of crew is Mickey Dolenz of the Monkees.
Yeah.
As the gun shop owner. And then there's also I'm forgetting, Udo Kier has that little bit.
Oh yeah.
Udo Kier and Clint Howard.
Yeah, Clint Howard shows up.
And so it is nice to have those little those character actors pop up.
Yeah, it's
give a bit of color to the
it really is something that I don't think would have been made today. Like, it's very much of its time, and that's I remember when this came out, and this was like my first introduction to like what Halloween was, other than my parents telling me that it was a scary movie. And I remember the poster being like, I don't know, just very
striking
ominous.
Poster.
Yeah.
Because I do love sort of Rob Zombie, especially in this period, sort of his style, like in the same ranks as like Tony Scott and Michael Bay. It's something that sort of has fallen out of favor. People don't like sort of the ostentatious direction in that style these days. But it certainly is. You think of it, you see it, and it's like, yeah, this is the 2000s. This is the aughts.
This is the aughts. Yeah. It's definitely an upgrade too, compared to Halloween Resurrection too. So I think I can speak for all of us on that.
Is Resurrection, is that the one with the found footage element?
Yeah, that's the one with Busta Rhymes.
Oh, that one's
Nathan
fine.
and I quite like that one.
Really?
I've yet to see it.
It's a fine old time.
H2O is the worthless one.
I think H2O is pretty all right. I think it's pretty good.
I would like it more. I think it's a very confident film, and I think that it does build tension. I just do not like the way Michael's mask looks. It made me laugh more.
Well, that's the
than
thing
I probably
about
should.
how good a Halloween film is how well did they replicate the mask?
If the mask is bad, it just takes you out.
Because he's got the big
person's
like
big blue eyes
McDonald's
or something.
eyebrows. It looks.
It looks like one of those amateur films. It's like those Star Wars. It feels like that same sort of energy. Just like a terrible.
That's very true. It's also interesting how with that one they don't even explain. Do they explain how Michael gets out? They don't really explain a lot, if I remember so. And H2O, it's just kind of
Halloween films have not been renowned for their explanatory.
This is true.
This is expositional skills.
Once they go to like the cult stuff, I just. What's the point in trying to keep up anymore?
What's like the Thorn
Cult of the Thorn or something?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
that is a nadir of Halloween. Is the cult element.
Well, yeah, because like they didn't know what they wanted to do with these movies. If they just went the smart route and continued making anthology movies after Halloween 3, then I think it would.
I would love to meet sort of like, you always see the producing credit. It's a man named, I think, Mustafa Akkad. I think now it's his son or some other relative that runs sort of the show. But I would have loved to meet the man and just like, what is your ethos? Like, do you have any like artistic stake in this? Is this just like, is this just a money game for you? Or do you actually have some sort of qualities that you want to imbue the franchise with?
It's got to be a money thing. I mean, because it really doesn't seem like they're trying to do much with like, because like the more I've explored it, and I have 5 and 6 and Resurrection left, it seems to just repeat itself like all the time. And honestly, watching Halloween 4 made me a little bit more sour on Halloween Kills, because I was like, oh man,
it's this very similar element.
Yeah.
Sort of the mob element is
I was like,
man,
the
lynching narrative is sort of present in that.
But Halloween 4 has like one of the just an insane ending that's just completely dropped
with the car.
Halloween.
Yeah.
No,
with
Jamie at the end.
Oh
yeah.
It's like holy shit, this is like a hereditary thing. And then it's just like, oh no, we're just not going to talk about that in Halloween 5.
I mean, we also have to contextualize Halloween with sort of the massive horror franchise. Like it still forms a pretty good middle ground in between sort of the direct, that is the Friday the 13th franchise.
How dare you?
And the sort of, you know, the Nightmare on Elm Street honestly approaches like art house territory in comparison.
That's why I like it. That's why it's the best one.
Remarkably consistent films, those Nightmare on Elm Street films. All of them have something to offer, which is not something you could say with either Halloween or Friday the 13th.
I think Friday the 13th
never goes to Manhattan.
Friday.
I'm halfway through that movie right now, Nathan. I just need to finish it.
All right, I'm not going to say anything
yet. We haven't seen Halloween Ends yet. He could be going to Manhattan. We don't know.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, Illinois is not too far away. It's only a 10-hour drive. But I mean, yeah, I think that to me, the Friday the 13th franchise is the worst of those three, because I don't know. I mean, to be fair, I've seen what the first one, the second one, the third one, the seventh one, Jason X, Jason Goes to Hell, Freddy versus Jason, and that remake. So I haven't seen,
See, I don't want to sound like every other horror fan out there, but like, you really got to see the sixth one for it to be really good.
Oh, okay.
The thing about Jason is Jason, to me, of the sort of the three major sort of, the Holy Trinity or the of horror,
the crazy circle
is so uninteresting of a figure, because he's a carbon copy of Michael. Like, it was a straight rip of Michael Myers, was sort of the genesis of Jason, as sort of a character.
I guess he's given him a little more of a sympathetic backstory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
he is, but he has little presence in most of the Friday the 13th films. There's some permutations, like the one Nathan is mentioning. He's quite a comedic presence.
Mm-hmm.
He definitely is.
I mean, with Jason, I don't think there's ever been too much of a personality. It's always been the location, like the sleepaway camp or the summer. It's the summer camp, but that's always been like, Camp Crystal Lake.
Michael has always had some sort of has had some sort of intelligence. There's been some sort of inkling that
he's cheeky.
He has this sort of he has plans, and like he really thinks things through. Jason to me even feels less human than Michael. Like it could be anything.
It's much closer to just like this pure force of destruction, and like
he's just focalized through this guy with a machete. But it feels completely besides the point that he's even a human.
Michael is never gonna like crash through a window to kill someone. But
and Rob Zombie's Halloween,
yeah. To get back to Rob Zombie, that is the Michael that we have. But generally, Michael's.
I think next Halloween we should have like the first podcast 43 debate where we go over all the major horror franchises.
The major
slashers. Pretty fun. Yeah.
It'd be like,
man, I can't wait to see where Leprechaun ranks.
I think Nathan and I took a lot of trouble to get through those Leprechaun films. I think
I'm surprised y'all did it. Truth be told,
Child's Play are pretty solid for the most part. All of those movies.
Funnily enough, Child's Play was the only horror franchise I really watched as a child. Like, I didn't watch any of the other ones. I did watch the Chucky films as a kid.
Hey, you a fan of Bride of Chucky with John Ritter?
I've never seen a Chucky movie I didn't like.
Okay.
I like them all.
Yeah,
I like them all.
I'm just at a quick sidebar. What do y'all think of the Scream franchise?
Scream is one that I haven't gone. Nathan has famously never seen Scream.
I have not seen any of the Scream
Never
films.
seen one. I've seen the first one. I love the first one.
I love the first one.
I've seen
too.
bits and pieces of subsequent films, but I've never actually done the sort of run through.
Well, I find it funny because the new Scream movie seems like it's ripping off Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills at the same time by bringing back like
it's a winning formula.
This is true. I was so surprised to see. I mean, I heard that they were making another Scream movie, But I do find the trailer to be very funny, where she like locks the door with her like Amazon app, and then Ghostface Killer unlocks, and then she goes like, and she locks it again, and then he unlocks it. So that was a pretty funny bit.
It's they're I just my main critique with them is that I do like the first one, but the second one I found to be not very enjoyable, and the third one also not very good, other than a lovely cameo from Jay and Silent Bob. But I just think it's weird that they're postmodern slashers that point the finger at other franchises for falling into these different genre conventions, and then end up doing that very same thing. And I just don't think they do it as well as the things.
I mean, there's a level of credibility, I think, just built in because it's Wes Craven doing it. If it was some sort of maybe first time director doing it, I think maybe it wouldn't resonate as much.
That's true.
That sort of does give it. That's why Scream is interesting, is because this is Mr. Nightmare on Elm Street sort of interrogating himself.
I like that. There's that one line in the opening of Scream when Drew Barrymore's on the phone, and he had the Ghostface Killer asks her, like, you like the Nightmare on Elm, you like the who has like fingers on his knives or whatever, like what movie's that from? And she's like, oh, that's from the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. The first one was scary, but the sequels all sucked. That was right before New Nightmare, I believe. So he was he was just insulting everything else that he hadn't directed.
Well, to kind of get back on topic, with Halloween 2, what are your guys' first impressions of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2?
Well, it's more of a Rob Zombie film. He kind of was able to sort of follow his own arrow on that one. And it's quite similar to sort of like films that he would do in the future. Like I think of Lords of Salem. There's a lot of resemblances to that film. And it's sort of where he's able to make the franchise, sort of like bend to his will instead of sort of trying to have sort of a connection to the original film. So I find it interesting. I find it's a better movie than the first one, certainly. Just because he's fully taking Halloween to a different realm, and so I can sort of appreciate it on a different level than I could sort of the more straight remake of the first Halloween.
Yeah, that's entirely how I see it too, where it's like he's not tied down anymore, with the exception of the hospital, which is just a brief part of this film. Which is a callback to Halloween 2. There isn't really much that this film and Halloween 2 from 1981 have in common. So Rob Zombie is just kind of able to do his own thing and just kind of go in a completely insane direction, which I think is good.
Yeah. From what I've read, they were going to make Halloween 2 either way, just because of how much money Halloween 2007 made. So I believe he just came back because, he might as well do it so they don't mess with his vision, which, I don't think they messed with it too much based on Halloween 2.
Yeah. I mean, if his vision involved Weird Al Yankovic making a cameo. So like
Weird Al Yankovic and
Chris Hardwick.
Making fun of Dr. Loomis. I can't believe this.
You're evil when Weird Al is making fun of you.
I wanted to say that I do really enjoy the hospital sequence, and I like that it's like a little nod. I thought it was very.
Thank you, Fulton. That's my favorite sequence in the entire film. I remember watching it, and I was just like, "This is so clever to do this little micro remake of the original Halloween 2." And it's incredibly well paced. And it's kind of like its own little short film, because we learn, of course, that it's not part of the actual diegesis of the narrative. It's this dream, but it's a great sequence. Very, very, very thrilling and horrifying.
I do love how Michael gets out of the ambulance with their wow, wait, what are they called? Oh hell,
cow.
Yeah, well, no, I was trying to think of what are the people that are, oh my god,
paramedics.
Oh my god, Thank you, Nathan. I'm so sorry. I do love
no problem.
The paramedics are talking, and one's like cow, and he's like, what? And he's like, there's a fucking cow. And the van.
Let's remember what they're talking about before that. Like,
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh,
I mean,
yes,
it's
yeah.
typical
They're not
Rob
innocent.
Zombie
They're
dialogue. They're like these.
necrophilia.
Yeah.
They're like, I've never thought about doing it before until tonight, and it's just like, you know, just in that Rob Zombie like redneck like.
I think I did very much enjoy this film, and I think I'd probably enjoy it more upon a rewatch, because I think it is kind of like it's giving you a lot within this movie, and I did find it to be very interesting. I think my only major complaint is just I thought the film was too dark. Not in terms of like thematics, but like in terms of cinematography. I felt like I
Physically
couldn't
dark. You
see
can't
so
see what's
much.
going on.
Yeah.
We like me and Fulton literally were unsure. We were like, is that Octavia Spencer? And then she kept going into the shadows. And then she finally when he killed her, she was out in the light, and we were like, okay, that's Octavia Spencer. But like there's just so many scenes in this movie where Michael is just shrouded in darkness, and you're not even sure if like he's there or like when he's gonna pop up, and it's just
Yeah.
but it's not like in a good like tense way.
The frustrating thing to me about that is that he's put in some of the most like interesting kind of areas. I feel like he's in a stripper, or he's in a strip club, and he's just tearing through the strip club and throwing people into glass, and I think it's a very interesting sequence, but I was like, I can't really make out what's going on. And then the first like real kill of the film is these like rednecks find Michael out in the middle of a field, and Michael takes one of their heads and like slams it into like the antlers, I think, on the front of the car.
Yeah.
You can't, it's like just barely kind of visible to me.
I like that Fulton's two favorite places are the strip club and a field. Like that's it. Those are Fulton's favorite places to be.
Well, I just find it like visually, it was visually interesting. There's so many things,
I'll co-sign the strip club part because
it
turns into
Chris.
because it turns into like an art house film. Like the colors are nuts. Rob Zombie did a better job.
Club too.
Rob Zombie did a better job shooting a nightclub than like Edgar Wright did in Last Night in Soho. That's for sure.
We'll get to that, Chris.
But yeah, that scene's rad. And like the way that this kind of like this is more about like tackling like familial trauma in the Myers family, and I just think that it's a really interesting angle for Rob Zombie to go at. So like,
I mean, we're kind of aligning the sort of major difference in this film is that it's this very fantastical, surreal treatment. Like there's visions and sort of symbols are very important in this film to an extent that they've never been in any Halloween film. We have this white horse, which actually is like the opening quote to the film is like what the white horse means. And we have this figure of the white horse and his mother who was passed away, sort of appearing to him and Laurie in visions. That is sort of the through line of the film.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much Laurie's film more than Michael's. I mean, Michael is still there, and he certainly has his own mission and visions and stuff. But Laurie's the one we're really following.
Laurie's a much stronger character in this film than she was.
Mm-hmm. And you see her much different than any other time you see her in a Halloween, except maybe David Gordon Green's, with how she's basically processing everything that happened on Halloween and losing her parents and such as that. So
I mean, there's people on subsections of like film Twitter that like think that this movie is like a masterpiece, which I think is
it's some people's favorite Halloween film.
I was really trying maybe this is a masterpiece, maybe it is. It doesn't cohere enough for me, but anywho.
There's a lot of great constituent elements. I mean, I think one of my MVPs in this film is Brad Dourif.
Oh yeah,
he's sort of in a much more expanded role than he was in the first one as sort of the sheriff. Very warm presence, very moving when sort of Chucky himself.
The Brecken household is definitely very interesting in terms of like how it visually looks, because their bathroom is insane.
It's grimy.
That's that Rob Zombie touch.
Yeah, but there's like writing on the wall that's like "clean your shit, bitch," and
well, let's
Laurie's
not forget
dealing with her
Laurie's room covered in like Charlie Manson memorabilia.
God, that Charles Manson
true.
poster above her bed.
And it's like you're asking for bad things to happen to you, Laurie. You're
Laurie.
With Manson iconography.
It would be kind of sick if she had like Firefly family iconography, like in universe, the Firefly family are like,
Zombies missing an opportunity to have sort of a zombie verse. That really is, he could do it. If Tarantino can do it, Rob Zombie sure can. Some tangential links.
I heard that Kingo already signed on. Gianni himself is.
Oh man. Sorry. Okay, so
and this was originally supposed to have a sequel as well, but then the Weinsteins, Bob and Harvey said, "Let's focus on Scream 4." So
Weinstein's famous for having impeccable decision making and moral skills.
I don't know about that. That's the scariest part of the movie is their producing credits.
Weinstein touch.
Before we kind of started recording, me, Chris, and Nathan were kind of talking about that. I don't see how you could ever even make a sequel to this film. Like, I feel like it kind of wraps itself up in a perfectly fine way. I don't really know what else you would expand upon. But then
I guess the idea would be to sort of focus on the Laurie Strode character and like actually for the first time, which has actually never happened in a Halloween film, is to actually have someone else assume the role of Michael Myers. That, which actually would be, I would say, would be interesting for at least 30 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that box office would have been there back in 2009 or whenever it would have been made. I don't think the fans would have taken with it.
So that takes me to like a place. How do we? I know we have very varying opinions on sort of the David Gordon Green films. How would we compare sort of the duology of sort of the Rob Zombie films with the sort of two David Gordon Green reboots that we have?
I mean, I feel like David Gordon Green definitely borrows from Rob Zombie in terms of like the brutality that Michael brings to
and Halloween
Haddonfield.
Kills. He certainly does.
Yeah. Which I thought he was brutal in Halloween, but it's not as brutal as Rob Zombie's, but I feel like it kind of takes kind of like the visual aesthetic of Michael being a much larger, more muscular, kind of taller guy, because it is interesting to like watch the originals and Michael looks like this tiny little guy to me, but that's because I was mainly introduced to him through the David Gordon Green.
That's because Fulton, you are a very tall, imposing man.
This is true.
And Fulton's like John Cena. What a small shrimp. What a small man. That John Cena.
What a pipsqueak. Yeah.
So I find it interesting in that regard, but I don't think like it takes from any of the other aspects of Rob Zombie's things other than just kind of how Michael acts. And I do like in David Gordon Green's how he is he's a bit more mystical, but they're really trying to not define it, but it's like they kind of want to at the same time. So it's really kind of odd.
Yeah, like we said, we'll see in the final installment. But personally, I'm a huge fan of sort of the 2018 Halloween reboot. I think it's a fantastic film. It's my favorite.
Here. Yeah.
All the installments, including the original, which I know is, Nathan rags on me. I find it. There's something about it. I find it very moving. I think that sort of the portrayal of Laurie, sort of reckoning with sort of what's happened with her, and sort of like the knowledge that she's been living with this for 40 years, and sort of her arc in that film is very moving to me. Sort of the psychic weight of that. It's kind of like The Irishman.
The Home Alone traps are also a nice touch.
You're living with you have this sort of like built-in association, sort of Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci. That's kind of just built into sort of the film. And I feel that same way about sort of Jamie Lee Curtis and the new Halloween film. Halloween Kills kind of ruined it a little bit for me.
See, that's where I come. Like, I watched Halloween Kills expecting it to kind of hold the same mantle as the 2018 one, with it being serious and kind of a little bit more grounded. But then they like throw so much of what they built out of the window. Like, I don't know. It's just really frustrating.
The 2018 one is, I would say, a very tasteful film, and because it's trying to imitate sort of the John Carpenter, which is another very tasteful film.
I mean, Halloween Kills
like, is very vulgar.
It feels like fan fiction. Like, it's literally like, remember this character from the 1978 movie that showed up on screen? Well, they're back and they're part of the mob and they're gonna get rid of Michael Myers.
But like, why? But it feels like, and I hate to say this because I really do love David Gordon Green, but I feel like there is a misunderstanding with Halloween Kills that's built into it, because like Tommy is the one being bullied. I mean, if you're gonna mess with like canonical stuff, at least have it be in line with what the canon is. And I'm okay with new reinterpretations, but when it doesn't really want to reinterpret what it came, what it's trying to do, I just found it weird that Tommy, which is the bully, which I completely forgot about Tommy, but he's the bully from the first movie. But then in Halloween Kills, he's getting bullied. And then the kid he bullied is best friends with him 40 years later, but then they don't address any of it. It's really strange to me that they go like these links to remind you, and then they're like, I don't know.
It's a messy film. It's an angry film, and it's such a product of our time. Like, it'll be impossible in the future to think about it as anything but like sort of a Trump inflected narrative, sort of whatever sort of review of it had something to say about like the Capitol riots being sort of, even though it was written before that happened.
Yeah,
it's an inescapable sort of parallel.
Well, I completely agree. And then I saw, me and Chris have been talking about this because we just can't fathom what she was trying to do with it. But Jamie Lee Curtis was, I think, linking it to the Capitol riots and kind of the hysteria that came with, the Trump era. I think it could be very in line. I can see that, but she connected it to the BLM movements, which just does not make any sense to me why she would do that. But here we are. So
it makes for a good soundbite.
Yeah,
it does make for a good soundbite, but it's
we're
like kind of not tasteful.
She is on the front. She is promoting. She is like always. She's out there. Like she's putting her soul into sort of these promotional tours.
Yeah,
even though like if you've seen the film,
she doesn't do anything. Yeah,
not a major part in this Halloween Kills film.
Well, that's why I'm kind of hoping that. I mean, it might just be the more hopeful side of me, but I hope Halloween Ends is kind of able to, correct course.
I have faith in Halloween Ends. Like, even though Halloween Kills is not my favorite film, I do think.
I mean, it's entertaining for what it is. As a follow-up, it's a very odd one.
I think Big John and Little John is like just something that sounds like it was a joke in the writers.
There's that, that's kind of like the wild card, I would say, of the newest set of reboots is Danny McBride. I think that's definitely a Danny McBride touch, sort of the Little John, Big John characters, like in the original, in the sort of the 2018 Halloween, the sort of just bit about Bon Me, where they're just like, there's two cops and they're just like talking about Bon Me. That's such a Danny McBride move. And so that's one thing I do like about the new ones is this sense of humor that they have.
Well, I see a lot of people, they kind of criticize the new ones for that reason. And I think they kind of just use, like when they want to criticize the new Halloween movies, they just kind of use Danny McBride as a scapegoat. I don't think that's necessarily fair because there's 3 writers. I mean, like,
and on Halloween Kills, I think there's 4. There's 4 on Halloween Kills. Yeah. I think on Ends there's like going to be 5.
And I've met Danny McBride in person. He's a super sweet guy, extremely nice. I'm a huge fan of
He's
most
a Georgia
of his comedic work.
Native.
He's from Statesboro.
Statesboro. Yeah.
Yeah, he's an extremely nice guy. So there's more than one person writing these movies. Just have that in mind if you're going to criticize them.
Big John, Little John was a collective effort. And to give context to people that haven't seen the film, Big John and Little John are a gay couple that own the Myers house. It's just very strange dynamic.
They have good taste in movies as well.
They do. They're watching John Cassavetes' Minnie and Moskowitz on the television.
One of the least. Yeah, one of the deep
Every
cuts
horror
of
film
the
in that
Cassavetes
audience.
Very
Every
hard
horror
to
film in that
find.
audience, every horror fan in that audience knew exactly. Oh, they're watching Minnie and Moskowitz. What a reference.
Wow, what a.
It's funny to compare that to like other like movie references in the Halloween franchise, because like one of the famous ones is that they watched The Thing from Another World, I think in the Rob Zombie one and in the
And in Halloween 3,
franchise.
they're watching Halloween 1 on the TV. But yeah, we've kind of strayed away from Rob Zombie again, but that's all right.
We're talking
hard
about
to
Halloween
not,
as sort
you
of
know.
a complete entity. Sort of
Yeah, it's hard to like
entropy.
take them out of the context of the whole franchise. Like,
Yeah.
They all communicate. They're all very much in dialogue with each other.
Well, on that note, I think the last thing that I probably want to bring up in Rob Zombie's Halloween is, like how the film kind of ends is pretty wild. Like just the amount of like the brutal police shootout, and how Michael Myers for like most of this film just does not even have a mask on. Like he's just like a tall guy with long Rob Zombie-esque hair, need I say, may I say, and just kind of walking around like just killing people.
Can we get a podcast 43 dedicated listener to make like a fan cam of Michael Myers in the Rob Zombie film with a mask off by feature?
Yeah.
He definitely embraces that.
That would be a great fan cam. Whoever, maybe Pate's listening. He's good at those.
Yeah, Pate's good at making fan cams. Yeah.
In terms of my kind of final thoughts, I absolutely love Malcolm McDowell in this one. And Joseph, I think you mentioned it earlier, how he kind of embraces his diva-ness. And it's so perfect in this movie. He was definitely my favorite, like by far one of my favorite things about it, because the first like scene that we have of him, he's looking at like a headshot of him, and he's like, who did this? This is not right. And he's complaining to his PR person and everything, and I love that. And I love all the billboards of him, like like his rider face next to this photo of Michael as a kid. And I also love the ending of the first one and this one. And what Rob Zombie does is at the ending of the first one, Laurie Strode is in a complete kind of state of disarray, and she's crying, and he zooms into her mouth and then zooms out of her mouth when I think Michael's holding her as a baby, and she's crying in Michael's hands. And it's like a home video type thing. I thought that was really nice. And then they I want to say they replicate that with the sequel, but then it's reversed on Michael instead of her, if I remember correctly. I could be mistaken.
I'm proud of us for never invoking the word which I thought would come up today, which is Lynchian. I think a lot of people in sort of discourse of Halloween 2, the Rob Zombie one, would be like, it's so Lynchian.
But is that based off of the imagery of the white horse?
It's sort of the dream elements.
I was getting.
I would say that.
I would say he's better at it than
the one dream sequence with Laurie, where I think it's like some sort of feast with a bunch of pigs. I wouldn't call it Lynchian, but I think that's the most.
I would say who I would compare
that
more to is it's very Guy Madden-esque.
To use a more obscure term, a documentary filmmaker Guy Madden.
And in very fictional film.
Or maybe like the Brothers Quay. I think it owes a little bit to that.
Yeah, well, zombie. I'm like I've really found myself to become quite a zombie fan through.
He's a fascinating director. He's one that, you know, deserves all the attention he gets, and some more, I think, from some of these more highbrow people. I think he should be respected a little more.
That's right.
It's interesting. He's returning to IP work. Halloween was his first sort of working with sort of non-original IP after he had his very original films, you know, House of Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects. He's returning in the fray with The Munsters, which is going to be his next film.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, the set photos look great.
Oh, it's going to be a family film?
I'm going to wait for that rating. The rating's going to tell it all.
It can't be above PG-13. Outgander, it could maybe.
Dude, it would be so amazing if it's a hard R, like, and it's just an insane. That's like kind of.
See, my comparison with it is, I feel like it's going to be like Eli Roth when he did The House with the Clock in its Walls, which was a hard PG. I think it might have been PG-13 even, because it's there's some violence in there, and like the main plot thread is that, you know, there's like a Satanist, like, you know.
Oh yeah. It's one of those films that, like, you know, churches would tell you, like, oh, there's secret messages in Hollywood.
I saw the set photo for Meet the Munsters, or if it's just called Munsters, or however it is, but I'm super excited about that one.
I'm looking forward to seeing Sherry Moon. You know, she always, you know, she sequestered herself to only being in her husband's films. I think she's a better actress than that. She could be in other people's films if she wanted to. So
one of the
nice to see her again.
I mean, I would say Rob Zombie probably the biggest wife guy currently making movies. You know, I mean, you know, John Cassavetes is, you know, no longer with us, sadly.
Yeah. John Cassavetes and Jenna Rollins, and then Rob Zombie and Sherry Moon Zombie. Those are the paragons of sort of husband and wife cinematic partnerships.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess
I guess Paul W.S. Anderson and Mila Jovovich.
And then Jean-Luc Godard and Anna Karina.
Yeah.
Don't even make the top three.
Well, no, I mean, they're, you know,
but I don't know. They never got married, and then it only lasted for like a brief part in like the 70s and 80s. So, okay, all right. Well, are we feeling good?
Yeah, I think I'm feeling good. I think we had quite a comprehensive overview of not just these two movies, but our views on the Halloween franchise
and just horror franchises in general at points.
Yeah. And I guess we can get into recent releases. I guess technically speaking, The French Dispatch came out before Last Night in Soho at film festivals and such. So I'll let Fulton and Joseph cover that one first.
Oh, you didn't see it, Chris?
I did not see it.
Just before we do, we'll just take a quick ad break real quick.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay, and we're back. So I got a chance to see French Dispatch, and Joseph, you did too, correct?
I did. I saw it at Telluride, actually.
Oh, okay.
How was one of those like special screenings that they had?
How was the experience of seeing it there?
It was a pack. It's probably the ideal crowd for French Dispatch in that it was a full theater. Obviously, it's a film festival, and the mostly like older white folk who would, you know, be most primed to enjoy Wes Anderson film. And so the laughs were hearty. I kind of always talk about sort of, you know, these sort of art house films that, you know, are kind of funny, quote unquote. I think of Phantom Thread, in that you can always tell like a sort of like an art house film goer by they laugh harder at the jokes than, you know, they deserve, because they want you to know that they get the joke. It's kind of like people who you know, they talk about like Bob Dylan lyrics and like they're like, oh man, that's so funny, and it's like this like throwaway like couplet or something, but you know, they just want to show you that they're on the level. And that's how I feel about The French Dispatch. Man, you know, I thought it was a fascinating film. It's sort of, I think the repeated thing is that it's a visually stunning film. It's probably his most ambitious film in sort of cinematography, also in sort of how it lays out its plot and its narrative strategies. But visually, it is stunning. It's a pastiche in some ways. Like it's drawing heavily on sort of that middle section, especially is all French do wave, sort of like rips. He does handheld, which is sort of like a rare trait for Wes Anderson. There's an animated section. And so
2D
it is sort of a
animation.
treat for the eyes. But sort of the common thread is sort of people who dislike Wes Anderson. There's nothing for the heart. It's all mind and no soul. So I don't know what you thought of it.
So truth be told, when I saw the trailer when it originally dropped, it did give me a headache. And just I only say that because his camera work has become so precise and so articulated, which I do find to be very visually interesting, but it can also kind of give me a headache. So once I got done with this movie, I had a headache because it is switching like formats and colors a lot, and different types of modes of filmmaking as well. And so it did. I do agree. I do feel like it is the peak of his like artistic kind of like. I just feel like it is the peak of his artistic career at the moment. And it's something that he's been building towards. And I normally do find that very fascinating to see kind of what that director is building towards. And then when he finally kind of hits it on the head. But mainly my issue with it comes from, so I would say it's kind of like a semi-anthology, I felt like, and I agree with what you were saying with it being a pastiche. But to me, there just wasn't enough to kind of connect all these different kind of storylines together. And I thought I knew what he was doing. I thought it was going to be commenting on like thoughts of loneliness and difficulty with connecting with people and stuff like that. I thought that was going to be the main thread, but it never really quite like the four or five different stories I want to say never really quite hit the same kind of chord for me to like connect them together. And I thought the opening of the film, when I first got done with it, I was like, I kind of like it, because I liked the ending a good bit. And then I thought about the beginning of the film, and I thought it really contradicted the ending. And so, yeah, so now I'm kind of sitting on the fence where I do find it very interesting visually, but there's just not really too much. I don't know. It just didn't really connect wholly for me. And I'm not like I wouldn't say I'm a Wes hater, because I do enjoy, I mean, like all of his films. And I think this film is perfectly fine. Like you can go to it and you'll probably enjoy it. I just wish there was a little bit more there to connect all the stories together.
Yeah, that's also another thing with me, that I'm a fan of Wes Anderson. So I would also, I would say in the context of film history, he will be remembered as one of the greats of. He will be remembered in sort of a similar way to like Ozu and sort of Bresson, and that he had this very aesthetically severe sensibility, something that really is just so distinct. And just so easily characterized that it's just something that's what's the French term, sui generis. It's just like without it's non-parallel. It's really something.
Are you saying that he's on the same level of Ozu and Bresson with how iconic his style is, not like being
he's Bresson, he's like Bresson and Ozu in that you can take a frame from Bresson and Ozu film and you could instantly recognize who it is. And Wes Anderson, I mean, whether you like him or not, you can instantly recognize the signature of the man.
I will be honest, there are many frames in this that could legit be paintings. Like I think the cinematography and the way he crafted the film is completely, it is kind of something to be in awe of. Because there's a lot of really beautiful images
in many ways. Like in terms of design, it's really staggering. It's staggering to me, and that's why that's frustrating in that I can't connect to it on the level that I would like to. But also, it is something to be admired. I've heard the one thing I will mention is that I've heard sort of like I have a friend, an older friend, who's more familiar with sort of the references he's working from, particularly the New Yorker. The New Yorker is sort of a big reference point and sort of the writings that's been done for it over the years.
Oh.
And he was much fonder of the film because he was able to sort of, if you're able to pick up sort of these reference points and sort of like kind of, see what he's getting at, and it becomes, I think, a much more satisfying film. And I would say that's true for, other directors. Like the more reference points from a Godard film, the more pleasurable it is, because you can just see he's remixing these elements. If Godard is probably the most famous remixer in cinema in terms of sound, image, and dialogue. If you can pick out a quote and you're like, that quote's from this text, then that instantly makes sort of that that scene or that element or that sequence much more sort of personal to you, and you're able to sort of derive much more meaning. And I think that's a similar thing for Wes. I think that's why, depending on how much you can relate to sort of the aesthetic references he's using, I think is how much you can enjoy, especially this film, since it is such a, it doesn't depend on sort of emotional resonance as much as some of his other features.
Would you agree that it's Wes Anderson's most horniest film?
It's quite a horny film. I mean, he's certainly I think he's hornier than people give him credit for. I mean, I find Royal Tenenbaums, I think, is quite horny. Moonrise Kingdom is all about adolescent horniness.
Obviously Grand Budapest is pretty horny. You got Ralph Fiennes just like having sex with all these cougars, that's like the catalyst of the plot pretty much. So yeah, I think he is. I think people may give him kind of don't really associate him with that, but he's definitely a lot hornier than Edgar Wright, that's for sure.
He's not an asexual. He's got that he's got that partner.
Well, we'll see how long it takes for Criterion to put out a French Dispatch.
Well, it will.
They've got the cover art they've already had, they've got it ready to go.
They're just waiting.
I just think that
Wes sends them the DCP before any theaters. He's just like, here, he's ready to go.
I can't believe that like he has a contract with them where just no matter what he makes, they will put out a version of it. It's like insane. Like,
I mean,
it is the most efficient money printing machine. It's more efficient than I would say even at like the Federal Reserve. Like, it's better at printing money.
Yeah, just artsy kids spending in upwards of $20 to $40 on a version of a movie that's already gotten a fine release. But
I would not doubt that Fantastic Mr. Fox probably is within the first 5 or 10 like most like.
But yeah, it's probably
a Criterion collection.
Yeah,
I would say.
Just think about all those restorations that have been funded from Fantastic Mr. Fox alone.
It's doing some good. It's not. I mean,
we probably gotta thank Fantastic Mr. Fox for giving us those Melvin Van Peebles restorations.
Oh wait, I guess Isle of Dogs would be next.
Yeah, it would be Isle of Dogs.
Dispatch.
Yeah, I was wondering if that had been released yet or not.
Yeah, because they just did Grand Budapest Hotel last year.
Yeah.
So that was
again, I like these films, but sometimes it's one of those. He's one of those filmmakers where I think it's becoming increasingly embarrassing to be associated with. One of those. It's just not. It's not something that sort of like doesn't have the sort of cool.
No, like A24.
Yeah,
right. Which I quite like most of their films, but yeah, it's something that's sort of fallen out of favor in sort of the film intelligentsia.
But enough of getting dispatched. How about we hop to y'all's last night in Soho?
Let me tell you,
Chris and I both saw last night, so I saw it yesterday, and Chris saw it today.
Yeah, I saw it. It was pretty bad. Like, I think it's probably Edgar Wright is a director that I think is, I think it's healthy.
Another uncool director, not a director that it's, you want to profess yourself as a fan of and sort of.
Well, I think the thing is that as you get older, I think it's fair for you to get more and more sour on Edgar Wright as a director, because I think he's a good like kind of intro. At least maybe with like our generation, as far as like how people come of age through cinema.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people's fond memories, from, Scott Pilgrim or something.
That's funny. Scott Pilgrim is one of the ones that actually, that's probably my least favorite of his films. And that is probably the one that I actually find most cited of most of the besides
people-
maybe Shaun of the Dead.
I do
But-
still enjoy Scott Pilgrim. Getting to see it on the IMAX is really cool.
Edgar Wright is like Wes Anderson. That I consider myself a fan, and a pretty good fan too. I like all of his films to a certain extent. I find him a fun personality as well. He's this very effusive being. He's very sort of he's got this infectious sort of like curiosity, kind of like a Scorsese. Like you can tell that he really loves the medium. He loves making movies. He loves watching them.
I mean, I think that the Cornetto trilogy, Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and World's End are all pretty good comedies. Like, definitely some of the best mainstream comedies that have come out. And
the big ding I'll give against Last Time So, and it relates to the Cornetto trilogy, and that sort of the Cornetto trilogy was sort of an exercise in sort of his increasing sophistication as a director. Each film kind of got to sort of deeper and deeper themes. He sort of, they were all comedies, but they sort of mined deeper dramatic territory with each installment. I thought World's End, to me, is probably his most effective dramatic piece. I think that there's sort of the arrested adolescence that Simon Pegg goes through is very like moving to me. And that's something that he sort of tried to plumb in Baby Driver and to a greater extent Last Time Soho. And I don't think they've been as successful tonally. I still think he has a great grasp on style. I think he's an incredibly stylish, effective sort of at exploiting the visual medium for all it's worth. But I found, especially the script and sort of a lot of stretches of dialogue to be incredibly weak in Last Time Soho. There's sort of this element of it's the girl goes to fashion school and she's sort of beset upon by her peers, and all the sort of the mean girl aspect is completely sort of banal and cliched and hackneyed. And that's the kind of element of the film I didn't like. The element of the film I did like is sort of the period setting. I think is very effective. It paints an incredible portrait of London in the 60s, I think. And it's sort of a period I find fascinating, which is a lot of the pleasure of the film I derived. Sort of the songs that he uses. I think it's incredible needle drop. Sort of a lot of my favorite songs are in there, sort of Dusty Springfield and the Kinks and Cilla Black.
I mean, yeah, Edgar Wright is shown to be a pretty big Kinks fan. There's a really good We Are the Village Green Preservation Society needle drop in Hot Fuzz as well.
Right.
And so I appreciate the music. That's I mean the soundtrack, I'll say. I don't really like the score too much, but it's probably the strongest part to me. And then also, yeah, I could see the 60s London parts are quite lovely. Kind of
and the sort of the actors he brings in. He's got these great signifiers. Yes, Terrence Stamp, Diana Rigg, and Rita Tushingham, both all very sort of icons of 60s British cinema. And sort of whenever I saw them, no matter their narrative function, I found it sort of very touching. It brought a weight to the film.
But
it's kind of I've described it akin to sort of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and sort of having this nostalgic evocation, sort of a time and place that the director is very fond of. And I have a greater affinity to 60s London than I do 70s LA, so that's why I think it's definitely, I'm in the prime audience for Last Time Soho.
I think that this movie is, even though there are some nice stylistic touches, though, I think it really is kind of a mess, especially in the last part. It really falls apart with the whole like men being like men that are rapists that like have these like almost Slenderman-esque features that chase after Thomas and Mackenzie. I think it looks really bad, and I think it's not really I think they could have like kind of conceptualized that trauma.
It is an ideologically and generically muddled piece, in that it really is. He's drawing on a lot of reference points. He's drawing on famously sort of the two ones that he has touched upon in interview after interviews: Repulsion and Don't Look Now. Those are his two films that he's like, that's kind of the vibe I wanted to recreate. He's also drawing heavily on the giallo tradition, which I kind of it kind of explains away how ridiculous the plot is, which when you watch it, you'll recognize it is incredibly ridiculous. I think the only other film that rivals it in ridiculousness from this year is Malignant. I like Last Night in Soho better than Malignant.
I think Malignant's a much better film.
Oh, Joseph, come on.
I do like Last Night in Soho better. I think.
This is,
man,
this is a
it does
staunchly-
fascinating. Last Night in Soho does fascinating things with your identification, sort of just like, and just like who you are the surrogate for, what your position as a voyeur. I think it does interesting things with that, and the sort of what Chris intimated at is like this generic mix of like horror and thriller elements is sort of clumsy, and like sometimes it's like, why did you have to treat this section in sort of this fashion? It's something I would love to see again, knowing now sort of the fullness of the film and knowing like what sort of the terminus is. But watching it, it's 2 hours that flew by for me. I was frustrated in sections, but the highs for me were very high. Whereas the lows were just sort of, I was just like, Edgar Wright, you can do a little better than this. But overall, like it's not one of his best films. At the beginning, sort of the beginning sequence, especially the beginning third, is my favorite part of the movie. I was like, this could be one of his greatest films. This could be one of my favorites. But it does sort of reach a point where, enough is enough, and it becomes incredibly silly, and the tonal shifts are much too much for you to take.
This is I will say though that this film is very sex negative. If I can derive one thematic thing from it, I find its portrayal of sexuality to be very weird, like because it lacks a lot of like it's not like the repulsion riff, I think, is kind of a missed opportunity. It's more of just kind of using a bunch of reference points instead of actually doing anything with it. And even when they do like the hand thing, when they do the pumpkin, the hand thing, it looks like something straight out of like Edgar Wright's very own Shaun of the Dead, and I don't think it's as effective, or they don't really deal with Thomasin McKenzie's character as this kind of like disconnected, detached woman that's afraid of men in the same way that Deneuve is in Repulsion.
The sex negative thing is an interesting thread because, like we've kind of both talked about, it's a very contradictory film. I find it equally reactionary as it is progressive.
Yeah.
Sort of it sort of is schizophrenic in like sort of the thematic allegiance it takes, and sort of the sex negative thing is a good like facet of that, in that we get all these intimations that Thomasin McKenzie's sort of the main character of the film is not an asexual being, like is shown to sort of have desire, have sort of want to have a sexual relationship, but also there are these scenes that sort of paint her as someone that is completely averse to the idea of anyone having sexual intercourse, and sort of it takes a very interesting position on sort of sex work in general, like
it's very much, I don't know, it was described to me by friend of the show Ben Noble as Edgar Wright's like unintentional case. He's pleading a case for sex worker exclusionary feminism, where it's like women shouldn't be able to like have autonomy on their bodies when it comes to like sex work, and all these men are like part of the problem, not just Matt Smith or like the people that are just abusive towards women and forcing them into these positions. And I just think that like Edgar Wright's just a very unhorny guy, and it's just I don't want.
Well, we also have to remember, Chris, in a similar way to The Last Duel being co-written by Ben Affleck and Matt Damon and Nicole Holofcener, Edgar Wright famously brought on a woman writer, sort of, I think, to sort of balance out sort of he's very known as being sort of like a very like he's a boys director, like
yeah.
That a very specific kind of cinema. Film bros do like Edgar Wright, and so he brought in this woman. I would like to hear what like sort of their contributions were, how they worked together, like what kind of what are the constituent elements of sort of like what he had. I imagine he had like a treatment ready? And what stage did she come in? Like what sort of ideas did she contribute? Because it really is sort of, and I think that might contribute to like why the film feels so at odds with itself, because it peddles a lot of different ideologies and themes at different points in the narrative. And I think it would be worth untangling that.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of that is probably due to maybe the writing process. I don't know, because it's not a film I looked into very much before I saw it. I didn't want to get the spoilers, because it is a very sort of twisty narrative.
Entirely muddled. I think the twist is kind of ridiculous.
It's that silly giallo kind of thing. That's how I felt about it. It is this sort of silly, sort of. I think Edgar Wright, I know, is a smart person, so like I give him more credit than like he just wrote a bad ending. I think he was aware of sort of how ridiculous and silly it ended up being.
It's just not like Malignant silly, which is, I guess, my problem. I just love
that's my overall biggest problem with it, is that it's tonal insincerity. I think it's unclear how much is just caricature and how much is sort of genuine feeling. And that's something I wish they did a little bit better.
Yeah, but it's definitely a proceed with caution for me, because I think it's still, I guess, interesting.
I highly recommend it. I think everyone should watch it. I think if you know who Cilla Black is, you're gonna like it. If you don't, maybe not as much.
I plan on seeing it at some point this week, because I don't think we have any major releases. I could be wrong.
we got Eternals.
The Eternals.
Yeah, I'm not. Nope. I'm not checking in. I'm good. I'm all
first
good.
The first rotten.
Wow, so rude to Kingo. Kingo laid down his life.
I'll pay $3 to see that one scene, and then that'll be my contribution. But no, I can't. I'm so disinterested in Eternals, and I feel really bad that Chloe has to take the hit on this one.
It is funny that like people were okay with Marvel. Like they let it, all these critics and all these folks, they let it slide, and then they're like, you know what, enough is enough. I've had it. I'm taking my stance. I'm putting the line in the sand. You will not pass this.
Chloe, you won Best Picture at the beginning of the year. We'll use you as the sacrificial.
I'm curious if the title reversed, like because the next one I think is a Spider-Man film, which it's a very popular franchise.
People are gonna.
I wonder if it's gonna go back. If this is gonna be like a one-time, like everyone's just like against it, and then back to Spider-Man.
If anything, I think critics would probably, because like my prediction is that like the next I know this is a little bit of a detour, but the next Spider-Man, it just has too much to fucking do, because it's got to rectify the twist ending of the second Spider-Man, and then they're bringing in all these other villains, and then apparently they just announced that they're bringing in 2 other villains in it, and I just don't see how it's not going to be overstuffed. Now, if what's his name, John Webb or Mark? No, Martin's not Mark Webb. What's his name?
Mark Webb
John,
did the Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah, I forget his name, but if he can pull it off, I'll definitely give him props.
John Watts.
John Watts. Yeah.
I know because I worked on the first one.
So I don't know. I'm super skeptical, but I'm sure like the audience is gonna love it, because they're getting all these classic.
There were cheers
Spider-Verse
at the trailer when I saw the trailer. Like I was at the James Bond movie, and then the trailer for the Spider-Man film came up, and then when Dr. Octopus comes out at the end of the trailer, there are people standing up.
Yeah.
Let's go.
The audiences are gonna love it, but I'm interested to see what the critics are gonna say. But I mean, like, it was gonna happen eventually, where the Marvel bubble was gonna kind of burst. But I mean, I think like they're not. It's
funny because I would think Black Widow is probably worse than the Eternals, because I saw that one.
I could see that, because Black Widow is not very good. I was entertained by it, but it's not a very good movie whatsoever. And
that one did fine. Like people like it went and came without much objection.
Yeah,
I think it's just like the fact that people are now having to learn about more characters. There's just this whole other new thing that is being added on to this already, just
bloated franchise,
bloated universe
Yeah.
of things that are
Well,
going
they're like
on.
rebooting. This is like gonna be because they're. I hate that I know so much about it, but I can't lie if I'm not like so sort of interested in where they take it, because I do find franchise stuff to be very interesting. But they're like calling it Phase Zero, which is just so sad because we just got done with Phase 4, with Endgame and everything, and now they're like redoing
We
the whole
already at
thing.
phase 4?
I thought it
Has
was
there been
Phase
4
3.
phases?
I thought that was Phase 4, but I could be. But I know that this one is called Phase Zero, and that they're already hinting at like Galactus being the next supreme evil guy. But it's like, I mean,
Ah,
Galactus he's my guy. I've always been a
Yeah.
big Galactus fan.
I mean,
Well-
it'll be. I don't know. I'm just interested. I think if anything, probably the movies will start to hinder, and then they'll just like switch everything over to Disney Plus, which is what they're doing. I mean, DC's already doing that with HBO Max. So I just kind of see it being. I could see that being the kind of end goal for it, but I could be wrong. So
We'll check back in with podcast 43 in 5 years, and we'll see.
we'll see if I was
Accurate
right.
we
Yeah,
were.
this prediction.
Was
how true-
Galactus the next hero? Find out in 5 years.
We're
That'll be
transitioning
interesting.
to comic book movies.
Yeah, Chris's favorite.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we're only going to talk about on this podcast.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess other than that, yeah. Oh no, wait. This week though, that the Princess Diana movie comes out too. Spencer.
Oh, shit.
I've seen.
Oh, really?
I like.
Yeah.
If you like Jackie, you'll probably like Spencer. I think it's a little weaker.
Sounds
Did
like you're
Darren
talking about
Aronofsky
people.
produce
It's
this
like,
one?
Did he? I don't know.
Because I know he produced Jackie, right? I want to say Darren Aronofsky did.
Oh, it's what's the director's name? I always forget his name.
I-
Pablo
I forgot.
Larraín.
Pablo
Pablo
Larraín. Yeah. Well, and then next week we got Belfast, which is a Joseph Shin favorite of the year.
That trailer.
Oh, yeah.
That
Yeah.
trailer's a ride. I'll give it that.
They have a new. When I saw last night, so they have a new cut of the Belfast trailer, which is the worst thing I've ever seen. I think the first Belfast trailer is quite warm and sweet. The second trailer is one of the it's a terrible reel of the scenes from it. But I would like to say keep your reservations. Like it is. I think it's a very good film. I think it's the most interesting film Kenneth Branagh has made, and since it's like Shakespeare adaptations.
Since Frankenstein.
No,
I would label it akin to this movie gets a bad rap, but like a Green Book. It's a great script. Like the script on sort of like a Save the Cat level is like very well done and much.
Van Morrison wrote original songs for this movie.
He wrote an original. The first song in the film is a new Van Morrison song.
Oh wow.
That he did special. Kenneth Branagh and him had a very special relationship.
Well, Van Morrison's also gone like off the deep end this year.
Yes,
Yeah.
but Belfast could rehabilitate. There are, I think, at least 6 Van Morrison songs in the film. Every song in the film is Van Morrison except like 1 or 2.
Did Kenneth write it?
Kenneth did write it. It's an autobiographical story. It's about his
Oh, okay.
It's his Roma. Like it's like he watched Roma and was like, my turn. And so it's still the Vegas odds for the best picture win this year.
Hmm.
It's between that and
Malignant.
Guillermo del Toro's Nightmare Alley. Are the two.
remake
is,
of Nightmare Alley.
yeah, okay, so it is a remake. Okay, that's what I thought.
I guess
Well-
you guys want to talk about I think we've kind of stretched time a lot. I think maybe we should do our favorite, the one film that we want to talk about that we watched this week that you feel like you want to give a shout out to. I'll start with Nathan, and then Joseph, and then Fulton. And
All
then me.
right. All right. So I'll do one that me and Joseph watched together for Halloween expiring films. It is the remake of House of Wax.
Oh,
From-
Mm,
What was it 2005? Dark
that's a
Castle
Dollar General
Entertainment.
classic.
It's a
It's
good
always on
movie.
Blu-ray. Yeah.
It's a good. It's basically a retread of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but kind of like, going into this sort of House of Wax gimmick of, oh, there's like wax figures and things are happening with wax. And, I mean, it's not a masterpiece, but it's fun. It's fun for what it is. Paris Hilton is in it famously for about 20 minutes or so. So all you Paris Hilton heads out there, go out and get your copy. But yeah, I mean, the set pieces in it of the titular house are quite something, as far as just like it appears to be practical at some points, and other points it just seems like CGI, but just the sheer audacity to just go ahead and say, it's we're being literal with the title here. But yeah, fun time, not too serious. But yeah, House of Wax. If you like Dark Castle stuff, probably one of their better ones. Much better than Gothic.
I mean, you should probably explicate the history of Dark Castle a little bit.
Oh yeah, for those who don't know what Dark Castle is, it's essentially this kind of production company that was founded in the early 2000s, late 90s, and basically their main goal in life was to basically remake all the William Castle, or some of the William Castle films, for like a new audience and a new day, and have different plots and stuff. Like they remade House on Haunted Hill, not too bad in my opinion. Others will say otherwise. Like 13 Ghosts was very good, but House of Wax was not a William Castle film, but they still had it. It was in that same vein of 50s schlocky horror, and they remade it anyway, and it was quite good. So that's me.
Well, what about you, Joseph?
I'll chime in with that. House on Haunted Hill remake is one of the worst films you'll ever see. It's one of the most distressing. Right. Probably the worst remake I've ever seen of any franchise.
That's stretching it. That's
Jeffrey Rush is unhinged. So if you like that, maybe you'll find some pleasure in it. Probably the film I want to highlight from this week is something I like to highlight things I haven't seen before. So one film that was new to me this week was the short film. It's about 45 minutes, called "The Little Girl Who Sold the Sun" by the famous Senegalese filmmaker Djibril Diop Mambéty, who was not the most prolific director. He only made 2 features and a handful of shorts before his premature death. But everything I've seen from him is sort of marked him as one of the most prodigious talents, not just of sort of African cinema, but world cinema as a whole. And this is a very, I think most people were fond of sort of films about children. There's something very, sweet and innocent about, films about children typically. And this is one of the best of them. It's about this little girl who, she's disabled. She walks on crutches because she has she has a leg that doesn't completely work. But she doesn't let that sort of define her. She wants to sort of provide for her family. So she goes to sell newspapers, and she forms this bond with another fellow newspaper salesman. And it's a very ebullient piece. It's not something that's incredibly sentimental in any way, but it's just a great portraiture, and I find it very uplifting and sort of it has this poetic quality that I like to see in short films, because I find the short film medium to usually be very lacking. Something about the form that doesn't allow for as much sort of narrative satisfaction as people are usually used to from film. But this one I would heartily recommend. Again, The Little Girl Who Sold the Sun.
Okay. The Little Girl Who Sold the Sun. Not to be confused with The Man Who Sold the World, the David Bowie song.
That is correct, Chris.
Not to be confused. Yeah.
I know that a lot of people were drawing those parallels in the head, but I just want to make sure that people looked up the right thing. So
And then I'll go. I rewatched Elephant, Gus Van Sant's Elephant for film class. And the first time I watched it, I did I guess I'll say on my rewatch, I was way more fascinated with it because it seems to be kind of pulling from, or when the Columbine massacre had happened, I think everyone was trying to explain this atrocity that happened. And I think it's interesting the way that Gus kind of incorporates all of those kind of explanations into the films and into the film, and never really kind of leans on any which explanation behind it. um because I don't think we'll ever really know why somebody would decide to do that. It's not a very easy thing to kind of comprehend, and it's a terrible thing that happened. So I just find the film to be so fascinating in the way that it kind of in the way that it's structured, in the way that it kind of explores these lives, and you feel because there's multiple tracking shots throughout, or I should say long tracking shots that just follow these characters throughout the hospital. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that, but throughout the school, where you definitely feel like you're there with them, but you're also kind of removed removed from the situation in a really weird kind of fashion. It just has such an odd kind of like presence to me, and you get to feel familiar with the school, and you feel like you kind of can recognize that. And you know, I was a 2001 baby, so I do get kind of like, I feel very like sentimental when I see people that dress in the way of like the early 2000s, and there's just a certain aesthetic about it that always is kind of like intrigued me because I grew up on it. So this film has all that because of when the massacre happened. um, and I also wanted to point out that there's a very interesting reference to Gus Van Sant. It may have been his previous film, Jerry. There's a scene where one of the kids are playing like an FPS shooter, and it's a dude with a pistol in the middle of like this desert, and he's shooting a dude that has a giant gold star on him, and then he's shooting another dude that has kind of like a shirt wrapped around his head to keep his head cool, and everything. It's very interesting. It's a very weird reference, and to put it into a movie like that, but you know, so that's my one movie.
But so I just wanted to preface I had a pretty good week. So it was all interesting stuff, but it's a tough toss up for me. But I'm gonna have to go with Jim Jarmusch's Coffee and Cigarettes, which I really loved. It was it's a Jarmusch film, so it's a pretty stacked cast of people. A lot of them, there's a lot of the Venn diagram between Jarmusch regular players and Wes Anderson regular players. There's definitely some overlap sometimes, especially Bill Murray. And so this has just a bunch of different vignettes with conversations of people over coffee and cigarettes. And I think that you get some really amusing dialogue from different people that I think all of them are pretty good. But the one that really stood out to me is the Iggy Pop and Tom Waits segment, where Iggy Pop and Tom Waits are like convincing themselves that they can start smoking again because they quit because it looks cool and it's like a cool prop.
They're trying to figure out which one has the better body.
Yeah, and they start comparing their bodies and their grisly voices, and yeah. And then also Steve Coogan and Alfred Molina have a great back and forth where they're. I mean, all these people are playing themselves too, which is another enjoyable dimension to it. Like, if you ever wanted to know what RZA, Jizza, and Bill Murray would talk about if they ever were in a room together, then Coffee and Cigarettes is for you. It's all shot in black and white. Looks very cool. It's probably the greatest advertisement for big tobacco in cinema. So yeah, check it out. Check out Coffee and Cigarettes by Jim Jarmusch on the Criterion Channel. But that's all I have.
Mm-hmm. This might be our longest episode.
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
Might be. But thank you again, Joseph and Nathan, for coming on. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Always happy to be here.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, thanks for coming on, guys.
And we can bring you guys back on in the future, and y'all don't have to talk about Rob Zombie if you don't want to.
I'm waiting for the Haunted World of El Super Beasto episode.
Oh God.
Waiting for that.
I think we're gonna do a whole episode on the Tom Papa comedy special that he shot and directed.
Oh
There
yeah,
we go.
we've seen that as well.
But next week's feature film is Drugstore Cowboy by Gus Van Sant. So we will be Sant. Is it Sant? Sant. Oops, sorry, been saying it wrong. But yeah. So happy late Halloween again.
Yeah, happy late Halloween,
happy
guys.
November. And stay safe.
Stay wavy. Bye.
My name is Bob, and this is a picture of me. It was 1971, and me and my friends had just got an apartment in Portland, Oregon.
You alone? What'd you think? I brought my rat-faced granny along to hold my hand?
That's Rick, my old partner. Every once in a while, we'd get restless.
Hey!
Hit the local points of interest.
What have you guys been doing? Reading Mickey Spillane or something?
You know, it just seems like the other day I was saying it looks like Bobby Hughes has finally slowed down a little bit, and then bang, you knock off another pharmacy.
Honey? Oh.
That's Diane right there. I like Diane. She took a darn good picture, too. Better than in real life.
Right out of the clear blue sky, you say you're gonna clean up your hand.
Diane, I can't do it anymore. I'm going straight, man. You ought to try it sometime. It's good for the soul.
Thing is, no matter how good a rip-off artist you are, sooner or later, you pay the price.